The main way that people have received insurance products in the past has been you go onto your high street, but that approach doesn't necessarily fit in with everyone's lives today. Then on the other end of the spectrum, on buying insurance online, even myself as an insurance practitioner, when I would see all of these products, it's difficult to understand which one really is relevant to me and my specific needs.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Sylvan.
Tom, Daniel, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you as guests today.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
You are the co-founders at Bind, an AI-powered company that makes it easy for businesses to better understand and target customers with relevant insurance products. I think you bring in a real novelty and innovation to the market. Before we go there, I actually want to know how the two of you met. What is the story behind that, Daniel?
We met through a common friend who asked me if I wanted to come and join in a meeting. And I joined and I met Tom and we became good friends, and turned out we lived quite close to each other. So we met for coffee the day after. And then since then we just became super close, and now we're doing companies together. So that's how that turned out.
The rest is history. I love it. So it was a co-founder love at first sight in that sense.
I guess so.
Exactly.
And Tom, what actually motivated you to start your own company? I know you have a bit of a background in the insurance industry. Tell us a bit more how you actually started Bind.
I think for me, it comes down to exactly that, the background in the insurance industry itself. So working within a big global corporate, you began to see a lot of the problems on a global scale, but I didn't feel it was the right place to solve some of those particular issues that we were seeing, mainly due to the size and scale of the business. So starting your own business is a way of seeing a challenge and then taking ownership for it yourself and really wanting to make a difference and see that change. So that was the main motivation, of seeing the problems within the industry and thinking I should take a go at solving some of these.
I love that. That's a very good starting point. And what was the key problem that you saw, Daniel, that was in the industry that you wanted fixed?
I think it was when we sat together, we really talked about the insurance industry, because I'm not from the insurance industry. I'm from a startup tech since I was 19 years old. And we got to talk about advice specifically. And we saw that advice is quite scarce, and that people, the brokers are really good at understanding customers, but there are not enough of them. And you need to be able to scale that up to cater to millions of customers at the same time and be able to understand their needs and when to recommend the right product at the right time for them, and also understand the risk. So we had to talk about how can we actually solve this and apply AI to really scale that up and enable these businesses to understand their customers better at scale. And that was really the inception of Bind.
It sounds so simple, so easy. How was that done before Bind existed, Tom? Was it just done in a non-scalable, mainly manual way?
I think Daniel touched on it. The main way that people have received insurance products in the past has been you go onto your high street and visit someone in person, and you will sit down with someone who tries to fully understand you, your needs and your risk, which is great if you're a small business or you're a complicated customer, but that approach doesn't necessarily fit in with everyone's lives today. Not everyone has the 1 or 2 hours to go sit down, or the inclination to want to go and sit down with someone for 2 hours to talk about insurance. And then on the other end of the spectrum, on buying insurance online, even myself as an insurance practitioner, when I would see all of these products, it's difficult to understand which one really is relevant to me and my specific needs. So it still helps to have some guidance around that as well.
Absolutely. And Daniel, you also mentioned AI. That is a key pillar of your product. What role does AI play at Bind?
It plays the role of understanding the customer needs and the risk, because we're using many different sources of data. For example, now we're working with banks and telcos. So it's a combination of understanding the customer data, but also the transactional data, and then really merging that with external data to figure out and profile the customer, and then figure out who they are, what are their needs, why do they need the insurance, I think that's also a crucial aspect that we come in with in our product. Really, the engagement, explaining to people this is why you need this product because something like this happened to you, and I think that's really important, and that's why AI played this big role in this.
I guess that's also way more powerful than to really make this aha moment. Oh yeah, it makes sense. I don't want that anymore. I need the insurance.
Exactly. And on top of that, you don't need to speak to an advisor who's going to call you up and send you papers and so on. This is all just digital, fully embedded within these big institutions. That could be banks, for example. And people really want to serve themselves. And we just thought this would be a great solution. But of course, it also works in, for example, CRM systems where you can optimize the existing brokers and understand their customers better and therefore make their time more efficient. So it works both ways.
Amazing. And Tom, another important part is the timing of any startup, right? Why is now the right time to be working on exactly this?
I think it's the right time because if we were talking about AI a couple of years ago, everyone would have rolled their eyes and you'd be thinking about a completely dystopian future. Whereas for me, things like ChatGPT and even the work that businesses such as Klarna are doing have basically demonstrated the impact the tangible impact AI can make in everyone's lives. So there's that side of the technical and acceptance is still there. And now from the public perspective or perception, now we can really see the use cases for it. We can see that not only is there sophisticated technology now, but also there's the appetite to use it. If I'd come up or we'd have done this 20 years ago, there wouldn't be the same acceptance from customers. Whereas now the stars have aligned in that there is a problem in the industry to fix, as well as the customer acceptance, as well as having the technology to actually deliver on that customer promise. So the stars have aligned for the timing there.
Absolutely. I love that. And additionally, you already briefly touched up on it, your experience that you bring to the table as a team, but maybe you can expand a bit. Let's start with you, Daniel. You have the technical background and the startup experience. What makes your team the right team to tackle this issue?
I think it's a unique composition of tech from my side with the computer science background that I have, and I've also built startups the last decade. And then Tom's very unique understanding of the insurance markets and his commercial talents and so on. I think that's a really good combination that we also realized early on that this would be a good way to execute on this vision. And then on top of that, we also have some expert AI engineers on board, and we have a really good board as well. Our chairman is the former board member of AXA Insurance and the former chief operating officer at Skype. We also have the former CEO of Zurich Insurance, Ace Pacific, and some other great people on board, such as the former CEO of Aviva Wealth and chairman of Aviva Health as well. So I think it's a unique composition we have on the team to execute this vision.
Amazing. Really strong team coming together at the right time. Now, I also want to talk about the milestones. So you are out there with your company. What are some of the recent milestones that you have achieved together with that team, Tom?
I think the last milestone that we achieved as a team was signing our first full commercial agreement. I think Daniel would agree with me on that. So that was just over 2 weeks ago now. For me, that was the last big commercial, milestone for us as a business. I think the next milestone that Daniel and I are looking forward to is closing the round.
And at the same time, I'm sure you also had to overcome some tough challenges. What was the toughest that you had to overcome so far, Daniel?
I think it was first of all finding the unique talent for AI engineering. I think you need to find those people who can really build state-of-the-art AI models that really aligns with the vision we're trying to achieve here. So it was really a great success for us to find those people. And then also the current challenge is, as Tom mentioned, the fundraising, because we actually have a lot of commercial traction, projecting a lot of revenue coming in. So we need to raise now to mature those AI models so we can actually execute on that signed commercial contract that we have, but also the existing pipeline we have with banks and telcos and brokers and so on.
Fantastic. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And Tom, we know the insurance market is a crowded space. It's a huge market, but at the same time, that also, of course, attracts many companies to be active in that field. So I wonder, do you have any competitors in that field? And if so, how do you differentiate from what's already out there?
So this is probably going to be a slightly longer answer because, as you say, it's a large and complicated space. But to try and simplify it as much as I can, on the one end of the of the spectrum, I'd say you have the traditional brokers that we touched on at the beginning of this conversation, and they're very much focused on complicated risks and needs. So on your personal lines perspective, that is going to your high street broker, and he or she advising you on your personal needs, be it your health, your home, or your life insurance mainly. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we see the embedded insurance players. These are the companies behind your travel insurance in the majority of cases, or extended warranty. So that is when I'm flying Swiss, and the end of that customer journey, when I'm looking for my flights to Lisbon, exactly, I see a little button saying, would you like travel insurance for your trip for 30 francs? It's usually an embedded insurance company that's sat behind that. So it's not focusing on the advice, but more the infrastructure of insurance. And then somewhere in the middle, you have the insurance companies themselves who aren't providing advice, but they're looking to increasingly get into partnerships and sit on what we call in the industry panels, whereby in the UK, if I wanted to get insurance from, say, Tesco, which is a large supermarket, there would be a range of insurance carriers sat behind that. So that is the full breadth of the landscape. Where does the question then, as you ask, is where does Bind then sit in this? And the reality is it's complementary to both sides of the spectrum. So we're sitting somewhere in the middle. We're focused on giving customers access to the right products at the right time at the right price. So more on the broker end, but with that digital familiarity that you see with the embedded insurance providers. So we're trying to sit somewhere in the middle. We don't want to be a pure infrastructure play because that's not the problem we're trying to solve. And I think there's some good companies trying to address that. And we don't want to go into personal advice because, again, that doesn't fit what we see as the customer need and pain point. So we're balanced somewhere in the middle there. And that in turn becomes the differentiating point, is we're very focused on a specific problem of customer advice and access to it at scale, but in a digital format. So it is both the differentiator and the breadth of the market.
The best of both worlds in that sense, to a certain degree. How does your business model work then? Like, I assume you have partnerships, but you also have sort of end consumer touching points. So what is the core of your business model in that sense?
As you said at the beginning of the first question, insurance is an incredibly broad landscape. So the business model and the operating model needs to adjust depending on the regulatory and customer context in which we operate. So the main commercial agreements we have signed at the moment apply in a Southeast Asian context. And to address those specific customer needs, it's the SaaS model. So in that approach, we're providing Bind as a service to embedded insurance players and brokers in the region to help support their businesses and their existing partnerships, which is also the reason why we're able to scale up to several 100 million customers incredibly quickly, is because that infrastructure is already in place. That is crucial for us. Whereas in the EEA, so the European Economic Area, and UK, we may need to take a slightly different approach, probably more along the lines of an MGA or broker, whereby we can do more of the ancillary services for insurance. So to provide advice specifically, then we must be a regulated entity within these markets. So we need a broking license or to sit behind one of the brokers in these markets. So it depends. That's a long way of saying it depends.
But it makes sense because you have different regulations in different markets. And it seems that Southeast Asia is a great entry point for you to build fast and early traction, as you're doing right now.
Exactly.
At the same time, you're also raising funds. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about that, Daniel. How much money are you looking for and what will the funds eventually be used for?
So we're raising 1.5 million Swiss francs, and the majority of the funds will actually go to execute this current traction that we have. So we need to build out the AI models, as mentioned, so we can actually execute on this vision, because we will be accessing upwards of hundreds of millions of customers in Asia, and we need to be able to deliver that. So it's a combination of that contract and also the existing pipeline.
Amazing. And we're really excited to have you also offering a ticket through the Swisspreneur Syndicate. So to anyone listening to this who's interested in having a look at your data, basically your pitch deck, etc., they can sign up to the deal flow through our website and make their own investment decision. Now, to wrap up the conversation, guys, I also want to go a bit behind the company and learn a bit more about your personal life, I'm going to have 3 rapid fire questions for both of you. I'm going to start with you, Tom. What was your summer job as a teenager?
Oh, my summer job as a teenager was working on a farm in Kent, so where I am now, basically selling cob nuts. So cob nuts is a form of hazelnut, essentially, that we grow here. And my ultimate success doing that is we ended up selling them to the Queen and the royal household in the UK. So we took our little farm in this small corner of England and took it up to actually a reasonably sized business within 3 years or so.
So cool. So you learned how to do sales right there.
How to sell in a marketplace. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Very nice. Daniel, what was your summer job?
My summer job was a tennis coach. I'm really good at tennis, so I naturally just wanted to make some money as a teenager. So I signed up and was a tennis coach for like 6 months or 5 months or something.
Nice. Amazing. And Tom, what are you most proud of in your life?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the thing I'm most proud of at the moment of my life is taking the courage to leave a big corporate to start our own thing. I think it's understated the courage sometimes that takes to start your own thing and really make your own way in the world.
Yeah. You found the key to exit the golden cage of the corporate world.
Exactly, which I know is a topic that other guests have touched on previously, and it did resonate.
It usually starts with that leap of faith, and then you can build a great company out of there. Daniel, what is it for you? What are you most proud of in your life?
It's a combination of many things, but I think I'm really happy that I learned computer science as a teenager. I think that has helped me immensely. Also to get started on this startup journey early on, being able to execute, build, and all these things. So I'm really fortunate for that. And then I was doing my first startup when I was 19. And so I'd say a combination of having those skills and the journey that has taken me on, but then also just really focusing on being the best possible self I can be, being kind to people and all these things. So I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Wonderful. The last question for both of you. We start with Tom again. What is a surprising fact that people don't know about you?
I think this will come as a shock to everyone listening and on the call, but my surprising fact is that I used to be a model. Although the last thing I actually modeled for was doing a university fashion show, the pictures of which I never want to see again in my life.
That is indeed surprising. Thank you for sharing that. Daniel, what is your surprising fact?
I think it's less impressive, but I think I was really good at I'm really good at tennis. So whenever people say I'm also really good at tennis, we should play, then I basically annihilate them with my left hand without an eye or something like that. So
so if there was no Roger Federer in Switzerland, that could have been you.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I'll
Let's
take
see.
it.
Let's see. Hey, cool. Thank you so much for your time, guys. We're really excited to see your case going live on the syndicate. I wish you all the best, lots of success with the fundraising. And I'm sure you're going to be back on the podcast pretty soon after you build the global traction and maybe even IPO'd in a few years. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.